à la recherche des tanks perdus, a stuffed wombat production.
This is the Shirehampton Stuffed Wombat Society. Sorry, strike that. This is the Edinburgh Stuffed Wombat Society with their performance of À la recherche des tanks perdus. Our story starts on a path high up in a wooded valley. It's quiet, but there's the distant whoosh of traffic and an almost imperceptible, all-pervasive low-frequency hum. A man in his late 50s is scanning the horizon. Another approaches, deep in thought.
Excuse me, have you seen my dog? He's wandered off again.
No, sorry, I haven't. Bit lost in my own thoughts, miles away. What colour was it?
Black. Good grief. Is that you, Zung?
Ye gods! Doug! Moog!
Mugg.
Ah, yes, quite so. I haven't seen you in, well, it must be, 40 years? Where have you been?
Ah, you see, that's the problem. I can't quite remember. Can't put my finger on the day-to-day details of my life. It almost feels like I've been summoned here. Just suddenly sort of poof, and I'm here in the woods, searching for that bloody dog. Where is he?
Odd.
Why?
Well, if I had to give one word to describe how I got here, it would be summoned too.
How peculiar. What's the last thing you remember then?
Now you ask, I seem to have a rather massive gap in my memory. No, wait. Copper.
Copper?
Yes, copper. I've got a vague sense of copper.
What, the metal? A member of the local constabulary?
No, the colour. I feel like I was surrounded in something copper-coloured. Oh, and now I think about it, there was something that looked like a pipe and a small window above me.
Sounds like you were trapped inside a whisky still. Perhaps you passed out from the fumes.
That doesn't explain the bed, though, does it?
The bed?
Yes, there was a bed there, too.
Single or double? Made or unmade?
Well, it wasn't occupied, if that's what you're getting at. I may be wrong, but I think there might have been a tape recorder as well.
A tape recorder? Is that some sort of weird musical instrument? Maybe something like a penny whistle? You sure you haven't got your words mixed up?
No, a tape recorder, that thing we used to use when we wanted to record something, before we went all newfangled and digital.
Ah, yes, it's coming back to me now. Digital always makes me think of fingers, and you certainly can't record a movie on your fingers. Well, at least not a long one.
Indeed, indeed. But I feel as if you were there too, in this still-come-bedroom.
My mind's blank, though I sense there's something lurking there, hidden away, protecting me from something too painful to recall. Do you think there was some sort of traumatic event?
Possibly, but what sort of cataclysmic event would cause such mental constipation?
A fire? No. An explosion?
Explosion? Not so sure about that. Why would there be an explosion?
Maybe there was a build-up of noxious gases. Did we brew stuff? It might explain the bedroom stroke still confusion.
I think you're catching at straws.
Wait, wasn't there someone else with us too? Whiplash.
Who?
Moneypenny. No, Jericho. Wait, Jellicoe. Yes, Jellicoe. And she had a wobble.
She was well endowed, was she? That might...
Did I say wobble? I think I meant warble. She warbled when she spoke. Yes, it was Miss Jellicoe. Crikey, it's all coming back now. Wasn't she your secretary?
Hmm?
And there's more. Does the phrase Here, hold my shem tank while I take one of my suits of armour off. Mean anything to you?
It does sound oddly familiar, if a little absurd. I mean, why would I wear 2 suits of armour?
Weren't you complaining how hot it was? I must have suggested you take something off. But that would indicate we were somewhere hot.
It does ring a bell now you mention it. I'm still not sure how all this ties up with the explosion. What did this explosion sound like?
What did it sound like? Are you serious? It was an explosion. It sounded sort of like...
Well, bless my soul. Fancy seeing you here. Mugg, isn't it?
Dung.
Zung?
Ah, apologies. I'm a little disoriented. I was... Wait, weren't we just talking about something?
Explosions?
Why would we talk about them?
No idea whatsoever. You were discussing the last thing you remembered. You thought you'd been summoned.
Who are you?
Miss Jellicoe. Well, Doc, weren't you my secretary? In your dreams, Buster. I'm the one with the PhD. It's just you never acknowledged it. And I don't have a warble. At least, not the real me. Well, I'm sure it was just an over...
Excuse me, can we get back to the more important issue of this explosion? So what did this explosion sound like?
What did it sound like? Are you serious? It was an explosion. It sounded... Cut that out, both of you. I'm fed up of being summoned. It sets me all of a quiver.
Perhaps we're asking the wrong question. Maybe we should ask why there was an explosion rather than what it sounded like.
Why do I have the feeling that you've already tried that line of inquiry?
You know, I really am having the most massive déjà vu. As if we were just repeating something we've rehearsed already.
What, you mean like actors?
Yes! I've got it. Say personaggi.
Personaggi?
What?
You said, say personaggi. Is it some magical incantation? No, I think he's trying to suggest that we're characters trapped inside a play like the one written by Piran...
But incognito ergo sumo.
I'm a masked Japanese wrestler? Idiots, it's cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am.
Well, how would you know?
Well, with a degree in French and a doctorate in knowledge management, I think my IQ probably exceeds the sum total of yours. Plus I googled it, just to be sure. René Descartes, 1637. Googled? Don't ask or we'll be here all week.
Or if we really are in a play, you mean the author, whoever they are, couldn't be bothered to explain what Google is.
Look, I resent the suggestion that I may or may not be a mere character. I exist just as much as the next man. Or woman, indeed. Look, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, there were 2 lads, let's call them Tim and Richard for the sake of argument, and they lived in a city called Bristol, the End.
And
now there are 2 characters that exist solely in my imagination.
But what if they, in turn, are under the mistaken apprehension that they've authored a script containing characters called Mugg and Zung? Then, who's the daddy, as I gather the kids say?
It's turtles all the way down. What on earth are you on about? What a small reptile's got to do with characters in a play? Granted, our early work might only have had limited appeal, but I doubt it was particularly popular with a reptilian audience. I see you're confused. I once heard a little old lady say this to Bertrand Russell after he delivered a public lecture on astronomy. It's supposed to indicate infinite regression.
But that would mean...
We should go into the turtle soup business?
Yes. No. There could be an infinite number of us.
Who's us? You, me, Mugg, the characters you just created? Ye gads.
Quite.
How could we tell? You could try asking.
What?
I said you could try asking.
I heard you the first time. What on earth do you mean? How do you propose asking?
Well, if you're a character's author, you could just write something into the script. Something like, a god-like voice boomed, is there anyone there? You've gone mad, lost the plot completely. On the contrary, it makes perfect logical sense. Just try it.
It can't hurt, old boy.
Ho-hum, okay. Is there anyone there? See?
How many are there?
Oh, there could be an infinite number of them. I mean, who wouldn't be tempted to create their own characters? They weren't as loud as one might have expected then. Now, that's the first intelligent thing you've said since we met. I take exception to that.
Sorry, am I missing something?
Clearly. Any infinite number multiplied by anything other than 0 leads to infinity. So, even if they all whispered a reply, the result would have been, well, deafening would be an understatement.
So, why can I still hear? Shouldn't we have experienced something akin to a nuclear explosion?
Enough with the explosions. I have a theory.
Okay.
When you create a character, that character isn't identical to you. It's somewhat of a shadow, a diminished version of you, if you will. You might even say it was some fraction of you.
And?
Well, logically, if that holds for the characters you create, then any characters they create will be similarly diluted.
So?
Then the amount of noise they make will be the sum contribution of the increasingly dilute characters.
But won't that still be infinitely loud? You already said that any...
You clearly aren't familiar with the summation of infinite series. I'm sure I watched that on the telly. Ah? No, this is a mathematical construct. If each of the characters is just half the man, woman, or whatever of their author, then the entire cast of each character would sum to exactly 2 of whatever they were. So 2 Muggs, 2 Zungs, etc.
A rather hellish Noah's Ark, then.
But how would we, or their author, ever manage to create so many characters? Surely they aren't a character unless they have something to say, or a description even. You know, something that actually instantiates them in the reader's mind. Now that, dear Zung, is a very, very good point. By my own argument, we could create the infinite host pretty quickly, assuming each level took half the time to imagine and transcribe, but the characters would quickly become less substantial than ghosts. There must be something we're missing.
Maybe...
Quiet, I'm thinking. I don't like the idea of there being more than one me around. It gives me the creeps. Can't we just forget about them, sort of uncreate them?
If I might...
I suppose if we could work out what caused this, then we might be able to come up with a way to amalgamate them all, collapse the infinite, make ourselves whole again. But we need to know what started it.
Which is what I've been trying to say.
Well, spit it out then.
The explosion.
Let's not go down that route again. No, wait, that's quite a good idea.
Why did you have to say quite? I was feeling very chuffed with myself up until that point. Now I'm feeling somewhat patronised.
OK, it's a good idea. I just need to think about it for a bit. Blown to smithereens, that's what we were.
Maybe that would explain our sense of déjà vu. If the explosion split us in 2, wouldn't that solve our problem?
Sadly not. That would just result in there being 2 of all of us, not the infinite number we're looking for. Or not looking for. I want to be unique again.
I know. One of you is quite enough for anyone.
Cheeky bugger. At least I'd only have to put up with 2 of you. Lord knows that's bad enough. Will you two please stop bickering? I think I can envisage a mechanism that might have resulted in our infinite selves.
I hope this isn't going to be some long technical description that no one has any hope of understanding. I'm getting hungry now, and thus my boredom threshold is particularly low.
How many explosions have we encountered so far? Just the two, fortunately. The one we have the déjà vu of, and the one that Mugg visited on us involuntarily. Precisely.
How does that get us anywhere?
If, and this is the big if, the explosion split the plot into two parts, then we've solved the problem.
I don't follow.
Yep, I'm none the wiser either. Doesn't that just mean there are now potentially 4 of each of us? And therein lies your joint conceits. What makes you think you are the original characters? The roots of the plot, as it were.
I resent that.
I'm not a clone. But how do you know? We've got dialogue.
We've got a location. Admittedly, it's a bit vague, but...
But it's not exactly Shakespeare, is it? You've got to admit that it's all rather second-class, amateurish. In other words, I don't think we're the plot route.
Maybe that's why I was feeling hungry. My characterisation was a bit thin.
Oh, very funny. Let's get back to the plot. Best way to stand with a plot like this.
I'm sure I've heard that line before. OK, how do we get back to the plot, as you say? Is there a mechanism that might make us whole again? A sort of inverse explosion?
I have an idea. Zung, do you remember how many people your Sherman tank held? I may be wrong, but I seem to recall it was 5. It was a Sherman M4. Perfect.
Why? What's so special about a 5-seater tank?
It's just a hunch. But I think that if we could assemble 6 people in it, and thereby exceed its physical capacity, we could create a sort of gravity plot collapse. The combined mass of the characters present would result in us merging back into our original, integral selves. Brilliant. I can see why I employed you now.
Except there's just one slight flaw.
What's that?
Unless my eyesight has got particularly bad recently, there are just 3 of us.
And?
And nothing. 3 is fewer than 6. We're doomed, you hear it? We're doomed.
Haven't you been listening to a word I've said these past few minutes? It wouldn't be the first time.
I have. But maybe I'm missing something.
If we're part of this infinite divergence, then as I've already stated, there must be twice as many of us when we reassemble, making 6 in total.
But doesn't that bring us back to the problem we're trying to solve? We need to get everyone together to get everyone together. It's a little circuitous, as you might say.
He's got a point. Neither of you is thinking this through. We don't need to assemble in the same physical location, just in the same plot location, i.e. the Sherman tank.
But won't the Sherman tank be equally diluted?
Are you seriously asking me if Sherman tanks are capable of imagination? No, there's just one Sherman tank, and it pervades all the plots. It's omnipresent. I do hope you're right. I don't want to be fragmented forever.
I don't want to pour cold water on your plans, but how do we coordinate this plan of yours?
You just write it. Yes, Dumbo, you just write it.
OK, smartass. You were probably too afraid to ask. OK, in the immortal words of Captain Picard, let's make it so. Zung, will you do the honours?
OK, listen up, troops. We're going to need you to assemble... Yeah, hang on. We don't have the Sherman tank. This isn't going to work. Given the level of absurdity we've now reached, I don't think that's going to be an impediment. Just cue up some Dick Barton theme music and instruct everyone to find the tank and climb in. I can't see anything.
There it is. I have to say it looks a little rusty. I doubt it's going to start.
It doesn't need to. Get in.
Oof! Ow! That's my knee! Watch your elbow!
You could have cleaned this before you imagined it. This dust is going to make me sneeze for...
No, don't you dare sneeze. You can't afford any more explosive events.
I'll do my best.
Quick, Zung, order the lid to be closed. Righto, Just type out the necessary... Oof! Is it getting crowded in here, or is it just me?
I think it's working. What's that rushing sound I can hear?
What's that smell? Sorry, I had beans for lunch. I'll open the hatch.
God, it's hot here.
I know. I'll just take off one of my suits of armour. Can anyone remember why we're here? We're on the trail of the great teeth thief, of course. Why do you ask? Just checking. Just checking. À la recherche des Tonks Perdus was written by Tim Reed and starred Richard Hall as the announcer, Dig Zung and Miss Jellicoe, with Tim Reed as Timothy Mugg. Sound effects were a good idea, and it was a stuffed wombat production.